You may have just heard that mortgage delinquencies are down to their lowest level since 1979. But how does this affect foreclosures in Southern California? We are going to explain in the Southern California Foreclosure Report. And make sure you stick around to the end where we're going to show you an important number you need to be tracking if you're looking for a deal in this real estate market. Hey there, Christian Walsh, real estate agent with Wire Associates. We've been helping buyers and sellers make the best data-driven decisions. So if you're ready to dive into the notices of default, notices of trustee sale, and REO numbers for Orange County, LA, Riverside, San Diego, San Bernardino, and Ventura counties, hit that like button and let's get started. And how are things looking for mortgage delinquencies? Are folks missing payments? Well, according to the Mortgage Bankers Association, we actually had a decrease in the second quarter of 2023. And according to Marina Walsh, not related to me, the VP of Industry Analysis, this is actually the lowest level since they began the survey, reaching 3.37% in the second quarter of 2023. Delinquency rate, the people missing payments, those are down. Now, bear in mind that this is data from the second quarter of 2023. Things may have been and could be changing as we get into the third quarter. More folks could be behind on payments. And Walsh adds that despite the low delinquency rates for homes and the mortgages, there's early signs of issues with credit card and car loan debt. So there is stress in the market, according to the Mortgage Bankers Association. We will have to see how that plays out. And a couple important points. Number one, this is national data, so we still need to know what's going on locally. And the delinquency rate are properties that are not yet in foreclosure. Let's dive into the Southern California foreclosure data, starting with the notices of default. So we have somebody who missed a payment. Minimum of 120 days later, a notice of default will be filed to show that they've missed payments. Then everybody knows it's public. These numbers we're tracking show, and we don't have LA in here, and I'll show you LA's numbers. There's more properties in LA, which means there's, as a percentage-wise, there's more delinquencies. So that's why we left it out for now. When we look at more historical notices of default levels, so that's pre-COVID, that's 2015 through 2019. We see 2021 and 2020, that big drop. There was a foreclosure moratorium due to COVID, and then things have since rallied back. And in fact, as compared to historical numbers, we are up above. And you can see, for example, Riverside County. It is at a double the level of normal notices of default for a July. Now, in all fairness, we've had to catch up because there are normal levels of foreclosures. It's around 100-ish for Riverside every year. And then because of COVID, we were down. So now we're catching up on some folks who were not able to make payments. Now let's bring in Los Angeles. So it's tough to see these numbers with Los Angeles in the way. Some of them are very small. We have another case where the numbers in Los Angeles are higher than what would be more historically normal levels for notices of default. Now, let's put this into context. Let's look back to the global financial crisis. In 2011, numbers were already dropping for notices of default. They had shifted into the next phases of the foreclosure process. So we can see we're still not yet at the 2011 levels, but we need to be significantly higher from where we are to get the number of properties to go through the next stage of the process, which is a notice of trustee sale, and then finally to the foreclosure process itself. So we are seeing an increase in numbers, but we're not seeing crazy numbers yet that seem to point to any sort of dangerous levels of foreclosures. Moving into the notices of trustee sale. So this is after the notice of default has been filed. A minimum of 90 days later, the notice of trustee sale can be released and it will have a sale date. Now, bear in mind that it often takes much longer for the foreclosure process. That would be the minimum amount of time. And we can see that we're still below historical levels for the notice of trustee sale. And bringing in the LA numbers, similar thing, where LA, even with its more extreme numbers of foreclosures going on right now, still not as high as it was in years past. It has eclipsed 2018, but the other years are higher for Los Angeles. So what this means is we're starting to see more properties go into the foreclosure process, and then we may start to see even more of an increase as they move to this next stage, the notices of trustee sale. But a big difference, and again, let's put some context, You look at these huge numbers of notices of trustee sale, over 4 times as many in Los Angeles, and many of the other counties follow suit. Huge numbers back in 2011 of properties getting into this next stage of foreclosure. Big difference is the properties now, many of them have equity. And what difference does this make? Well, these folks don't have to go all the way through the end of the foreclosure process. They can sell and potentially walk away with some cash. Whereas back in the global financial crisis, prices continued to drop as people were going through the foreclosure process. There wasn't going to be an easy way for them to get out. They could still do a short sale and avoid the foreclosure process, but even that didn't work all the time, and some folks didn't know, and some folks didn't want to do it. Moving into the real estate owned or bank owned, these are properties that have actually been foreclosed on. So remember, foreclosure is a process. These are properties that went to the auction, went to the courthouse steps, and were subsequently sent back to the bank. They're real estate owned. Now, some of the properties that get to this stage of the foreclosure process end up going to third parties. Don't forget that there's the SB 1079 process, and we've done video on that. I'll put a link above so you can check that out. Things have changed for the foreclosure process. We can see the number of properties going back to the bank are historically low. Now, 2020, 2021, we see more properties went back to the bank for many of the Southern California counties than we're seeing in 2023. So what's happening to these properties? Well, some of them are still working through the foreclosure process. When you turn off the spigot of notices of default and notice of trustee sale, it's going to take a while to turn the spigot on and have them come out as bank-owned properties. And the other properties, they're selling with equity before it gets foreclosed on, or they're being purchased at the foreclosure sale or even after the foreclosure sale through SB 1079s, much higher levels. So 2017 through 2019, things were stabilized for foreclosures. We had shaken off a lot of the global financial crisis headache, you could say, the hangover, and definitely 2017 through 2019, things were more normal for foreclosures, but we're not at those levels for the reasons we just stated. And then let's give it some context. The number of properties going back, for example, in the month of July in 2011, 1,575 properties in 1 month went back to the bank. That doesn't include folks who bought it at the sale, the third parties that were flipping them. So that is a crazy number of properties going back to the bank. Right now, if you're watching our other market updates, you'll see that that would be about a third to a quarter of the total monthly inventory in Los Angeles right now that would be listed. So that is a lot of inventory coming to the market in just 1 month. And that stuff continued to move along at these crazy numbers. That's why we had the big price reductions that we had during the global financial crisis, because we had so much inventory. And thanks for sticking around to the end. This is an important point. When you see those record low REO numbers, it's easy to assume that there aren't any foreclosure deals that are worth tracking. But what's even more important is to see the increase in the notice of default. So these are above record levels, and they may continue to move through and eventually become REO homes. But in the meantime, if you're using a service like Foreclosure.com, you can be tracking the notice of default and set up a system so that you can reach out to that person and see if they're willing to sell with equity. So this is a great opportunity for investors. The increase in the number of people behind on payments could present an opportunity that is mutually beneficial for the person who's behind on payments and the investor to get a deal that makes sense. So make sure you are tracking properties on Foreclosure.com. Don't forget, we're real estate agents based in Southern California. Before you buy or sell in SoCal, make sure you reach out. Did you like the charts in this video? Did you like that data? Well, our email newsletter subscribers get that delivered to their email inbox every Sunday, plus other important updates that you're not going to want to miss. Make sure you subscribe today. Did you like this video? You're going to love this next one. Don't miss it. Thanks for tuning in. This has been Christian Walsh, real estate agent with Wire Associates, Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, and we can't wait to hear from you.